Welcome everyone to Talk with Sally. Hope everyone had a wonderful day. Welcome to all those who got here early and on time. Julian, we've got Timber Traveler, Think Right. Who else we got in here early? I think I got everybody. Welcome everyone. We'll give everyone just a minute to straggle in here before we get into the details of tonight's show. So I will talk about my day, kind of a fun day. I have a car that has the electric switch has been out for, let's see, it's been out for a year. And I was terrified that it was going to be the motor. And I was like, I'm not done with it. I'm not replacing a motor right now. Don't have the money for it. I'll just put a pillow behind me and drive safe. And I also needed new tires. So I got my new tires finally because I couldn't drive anywhere without worrying about getting a blowout and dying. So got me some new tires. I'm like, gosh, I really should hurry and troubleshoot the seat. So I found a video on the YouTubes that told me to take the switch off the passenger side or driver, whichever, and swap them out. So I swapped them out to see if it worked, and it did. So got me a switch ordered, and I thought, well, I'll just leave this switch here because, who cares the passenger seat works. Well, come to my surprise, they're designed for driver and passenger. So when you're going forward on the seat, it was really going backwards. I'm like, okay, I'll get the part ordered. My car's a 2012, so it's a 2012 Camaro. So I mean, it's 12 years old. I keep it in great condition because I don't drive it lots of places. Um, I don't know how it could have got wet. It's really the Camaros are a really well-made car. I got rear-ended one year, and and my dog was in the car and he was terrified. Anyway, after hearing the crunch and the van was probably going 25, 30 miles an hour that smashed into me, I was like, I do not want to get out and see the damage of this car. And it really wasn't all that bad. And I was super, super surprised by that. So very well made car. And I like it. I take good care of it. I've only my son probably put 10,000 miles on it when he was driving to school. And before then, I'd only put 15 on it in 12 years. So it's just my fun. But I need to get out, go for a drive, go fast, and have a fun time. So tomorrow, if it's nice and sunshiny, she's getting a bath, and then I'm going to go for a long ride. If it's raining, I'm not going to. Anyway, guys, tonight's topic is a fun one. We are doing Operation Gladio. I don't think it's quite as exciting. It's like Silver Incognito, yes. I don't think there's not as many moving parts as there was during our last episode. However, today I was like, you know what? I need to do slides. Let's put some visuals back into our shows because listening to just the audio sometimes gets mundane. And it also makes me put into memory everything that we're talking about. So we've got slides tonight. This chapter is only 25 minutes long, which means we'll go an hour or so. Welcome, Andy. So, while people are still coming in, I was going to do a recap. It looks like we have the same people. Let's see if I can do this under 3 minutes. So, what exactly is Operation Gladio? Well, back during when World War II was coming to an end, during World War II, we had a thing called the OSS. It was exactly like the CIA, except for it was supposed to come to an end at the exact end of World War II. It was only meant to be temporary. Well, this little clandestine group of people, the Dulles brothers, really liked the spy network. They liked being able to go to other countries and kind of get the skinny in on everything. So anyway, while World War II was coming to an end, we had I'm on YouTube, so let me pick these words very carefully. So we have the leader of World War II had his soldiers, and what they did is the Dulles, the OSS, trained a troop of guys called gladiators. So the name Gladio comes from gladiator soldiers. So what they would do is and this is before the world had come to an official end. What they would do is they would train these individuals. A lot of them were Hitler youth, and they would feed them, clothe them, give them weapons, give them training on terrorism, bombings, explosions, assassinations. Throughout the day, they lived their everyday life. By night, they would sneak into Russia and they would assassinate, commit crimes, whatever they did in the middle of the night. Well, World War II comes to an end and they're like, wow, we really like this. So what they started doing was creating what is called stay behind soldiers, and those are called Gladio units. And we have them in every country across the globe and even in the United States. So don't think that we don't have them here as well. So we have these stay behind units, and they are trained the same way as the gladiator soldiers were at night. Every country, they go by a different name or different operation goes by a different name. And the reason why that is because they don't, it makes it really hard to find out when you start looking through history books to find out the whole entire network, the whole entire thing, if you're just looking up a specific name. So if you want to know anything about Gladio or coups, number one thing is look up soft coup or look up hard coup. Soft coup is what they did to Donald Trump. Hard coup is by assassination. So, with that part of the story out of the way, World War II is coming to an end, and the Dulles brothers and the people who funded the OSS, which was Rockefeller or was it Rothschild? I always get those two messed up. Okay, one of those two families and the Mellon family funded the OSS. So as it's coming to an end, they're like, and this has been going on for more than just World War II. It's just now they needed the cover of a country. So as they're doing their illegal activities, they're not all going to go to prison for what they are doing. So they recruit the Dallas brothers, recruit all of these bankers, all of these elites saying, you can make more money if you invest in this thing. We'll make you lots and lots and lots of money, right? So they get all these people on board. Next step is they recruit the mafia. Okay, so the mafia, what they're going to do is they're going to bring heroin into New York City. And they're specifically going to go into Harlem and the Bronx. Reason for that is that these people are very racist. And they specifically said they didn't care about the blacks. And so they infiltrated this group of people. Well, from there, we had a group of people that set up a network of banks, industries, companies as shell companies to launder this money. So the mafia brings the drugs into New York. The money from those sales goes all across the United States. It gets put into bonds at DC, and then the mafia brings it over to the Vatican. This is where the Vatican gets involved. So the Vatican Bank, which is called the IOR, is the most secure bank in the world. They keep zero records. You have to have a high classification to even know or be part of any of the banking system. Very, very private. Um, Everything is burned. So it's like if there's money going in there and then it goes out, there's no record of who put it in there. Okay. So then the Vatican, they take 10 to 15% off the top of that. And they have this guy by the name of Sindona and Calvi who helped set up corporations, banks all across Europe, and specifically in Switzerland, where the Vatican would send money into there. And they also helped the Vatican set up different banks for himself as well. So they're making money upon money off this banking system. So then from there, either the Vatican, the Pope, or the people working for him will donate to different non-government agencies. So think about all the immigration that is coming into the United States and it's going through an NGO. Well, think about that. Non-government agency, we don't know who put the initial funding in, but the church paid for it. They paid for their funding, but it came from someone else. So that was one way of using it. So they either did it by an NGO or they gave the money directly to these different banks and different actors that worked along with the CIA, which we call it now, thanks to Colonel Towner, dubbed it the international syndicate. That's the easiest way to think of it is the global cabal, but international syndicate is the best way to describe it. So then this money goes to this international syndicate. Those players, what they do is they go and they buy weapons on the dark market. And I'm not talking about pistols or BB guns. We're talking about bombs, explosives, and those might be the same thing, but whatever. And you have rockets, you have, all kinds of bad stuff. Yes, Colonel Towner, I am so grateful I found her. One, I learned more from her, and she validates the information that I've learned. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, okay, I had that right. I had that correct." And then she elaborates and make it that much more sense. One day when she is not so busy with everyone else, and I get a little bit bigger, I'm gonna try to have her on as a guest because I she's a wealth of knowledge, and she's just great with answering questions from people. Anyway, so they sell these weapons. So, well, who are they gonna sell these weapons to? Well, they're gonna go to the Golden Triangle where they have Burma, Thailand, and Laos, and that is where heroin grows amazingly well, okay? It's great soil, so they give guns to the people in Thailand. The poppy seeds are grown up in Burma and the top of Burma, in that area. And so and they're giving weapons to the other side. So this is where we get the industrial war complex, okay? So they sell the guns to them. They get heroin in return. They take the heroin to Sicily and, what is that little I can't think of the little I should pull up a map. Starts with an S. Julie, do you know the other little city, the island? What is it called? It's not is it Sardinia? Sardinia. And they were refining it. They've changed different directions. Anyway, they ship it to Cuba. It gets refined. Then from Cuba, it either goes to Florida or it goes up to New York, and they have various ways of hiding it, either through oranges, through chocolates, yada, yada, yada. And then the process mixes and repeats. And through this process, the DEA has been on board with all of this. Not all, but most of the DEA, a lot of the police officers. For 20 years, not a single person high up was arrested for drug trafficking in the United States. So that should say a lot. That is what Gladio is. And anybody who wants to know the full story, you can go to my Rumble channel or on X, and I have the full series in a thread on my X channel, and you can watch from the very beginning. And we go through all of the players, all the people, and knowing who everyone is, everything that we do going forward makes sense, and we're just adding upon layers. All right. Does anyone Hi, Macklin, how are you? Gosh, we have an amazing crowd tonight. All right. I don't think I missed anything too important. When I'm going off on a little rant or speaking like that, I am ADD, so I can't read and speak. It's a poor gift I have. I literally had to listen to this chapter like 5 times today because I kept getting distracted in my brain, and I had to go out into the garden and weed, because if I'm weeding, no one's talking to me or distracting me. I'm not multitasking. It's just thoughtless work. So, anyway, so tonight's chapter is chapter 13, and it is The Pope Must Die. And we're going to get it started. And then I'm going to pull up some slides today because I actually took the time to put some slides together so that we will have visuals of these people. And the main pope that they're going to be talking about tonight is the pope that they just barely put into place in 1978, after the last one was going to expose everything, shut down the network of Gladio that was going into the Vatican. They were going to deny them access. So they put a guy in, Pope John Paul II, and he was from Poland. And they were all excited. They thought, this guy's going to do our bidding, yada, yada, yada. We're going to help his country out. And he starts becoming a guy that wants to make peace with everyone. He wants to work with the Polish. He wants to work with the Soviet Union, which is what it was at that time. He wants to work with the Muslims. He wants to work with the Jews. He is, a true pope and believes in world peace. So you guys know what happens anytime a pope who decides to have a conscience and do the right thing, how long they actually really last in society. So let's go ahead and pull up Operation Gladio here. Oh, yawn. Okay, for first of all, guys, everyone here has been here for a while. Hi, Sangla. How are you? Sanglant. I think I've got everybody in the chat. Um, if you're new and you're just here, I will stop during the book. I will try really hard not to speak over when someone else is speaking. I'm ADD and I can't differentiate, so I'm assuming you can't. But we will pause and we will talk about and add extra details and sum up every section of this chapter. So first, we'll do a sound check and then we'll get going. 1, if everything's fine. 2, if you can't hear it. And 5, it's blowing out your eardrums.
Chapter 15. The Pope Must Die. For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents to attack the Rockefeller family for the inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. David Rockefeller, Memoirs, 2002.
I thought that was very interesting that David Rockefeller in 2002 is admitting that everything that he has been doing is working for a one world government. He's very much integral in, excuse me, he's very much a big part of everything that's going on. Same with the other big families, the Rothschilds, Mellon family. Who else? I can list them all. You know who they are: Vanguard, State Street, all those big Soroses of the world. But we're going to refer to them as the international syndicate because it makes it easier. I find it interesting that they will actually admit it publicly or in a book. Oh, Pritzker. Yes, Pritzker's another family. Bloomberg. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you're 100% correct.
By the end of March 1981, events surrounding Gladio were spinning out of control. The raid on Gelli's villa had provided Italian police officials with evidence of the covert operation, including statements of payments, linking P2 to right-wing terrorist outfits and criminal organizations such as Ordine Nuovo, New Order, Movimento d'Azione Rivoluzionaria, Revolutionary Action Movement, and Banda della Magliana, Band of the Magliana, referring to the neighborhood most members were from. The confiscated files also provided insight into Gelli's close ties to the CIA and SISMI. Adding to the treasure trove of information came proof that Sindona, Calvi, and Marcinkus were members of the secret society, that Gelli had been instrumental in setting up branches of Banco Ambrosiano in Latin America, and that the Vatican's shell companies had been used by P2 as a means of providing arms to right-wing regimes and rebel armies. The Italian police officials were now aware that U.S. political leaders, including the Vice President, the Secretary of State, and the U.S. Ambassador to Italy, were intricately involved in the inner workings of the lodge. All of these discoveries were made possible by John Paul II's failure to provide assistance to Sindona, a failure that led to the fake kidnapping, the visit to Arezzo, and Sindona's incarceration in a New York prison, where he was beginning to break out in song. What's worse, the jailed Don issued a $100,000 contract for the murder of John Kenney, who now served as the chief prosecutor in his extradition hearings. Growing concerns. By refusing to shore up the law.
So did you ever I don't think that they ever thought that Sindona was going to come back and bite them so horribly in the butt. So the fact that they didn't bail him out, they didn't take care of him, is what caused this whole entire disaster in the first place. So with him starting to sing, then Jelly getting raided, they know the whole entire P2 network. They know, what was it, 952 names or something like that? And it not just who was part of P2, but it also ended up being everyone that was involved in the CIA network. So all the people that in Washington that were involved, and all the people that were in Italy, the banks, they were all exposed.
Losses incurred by the IOR's shell companies, the Pope had been remiss. The payments of the loans should have been made through the Holy See from the seemingly bottomless reservoir of black funds. But John Paul II intransigently refused to acknowledge such debts for fear that the common laity might come to learn that Holy Mother Church was a very worldly institution. This refusal resulted in a massive investigation by the Bank of Italy into the affairs of Calvi and Banco Ambrosiano, and the revelation that hundreds of millions of dollars had been illegally exported out of Italy to the Vatican's strange-sounding companies. What, the investigators began to wonder, was the parochial purpose of the offshore firms that had received over $1.5 billion in loans from Ambrosiano. Surely the companies, now gorged with cash, couldn't be engaged simply in selling rosary beads, scapulars, and garish backyard statuary to impoverished Latinos. The probe, thanks to John Paul II's inaction, continued to gather steam with each passing day. And if the investigation was not halted, it would lead to the office of 30pm International, which was located on Ambrosiano property, and the discovery of the massive drugs for arms deal that was underway to make the world safe for democracy. The raids.
Everything, as you know, before 1990, pay attention, everything is gonna be safe for democracy or the fight against communism. And if you think about it, if you really take if you take a step back and you realize that these same people who set up this international syndicate are the very people who created communism in the first place in Russia. The Bolsheviks, they were part of this. They created this. They want communism. So when they say, "Oh, the United States is starting to become communist," I can't even listen to people anymore that even start to talk like that. I think they're not living on this planet. Once you start understanding that what this whole group of people is one world government, and they want communism. They want to control us. And the things that they are doing in every single country is to set it in place so that they can do that. Hey, Mrs. Mac, miss you. So, and this is why when I talked about this the other night, is Trump pulling troops out of Afghanistan and making a deadline and starting to negotiate with them. Him doing that to me was cutting off this international syndicate at the knees. And then I had someone else tell me during a space, "Oh, well, that wasn't going to do anything to them because he was just, they just have another drug network set up," which they did in South America. They do have the cocaine network, and they also have heroin in Argentina and in South America as well. However, Trump shut down the border. Okay. Shutting down the border is another avenue of making money. You have guns, you have trafficking of people, you have you have drugs. So having the border shut down is another way of cutting off that funding. And another way is defunding programs that they also utilize to make money. Defunding the World Health Organization, defunding PATH and WPATH, and all those organizations that um, aided in sterilizing children, women, and they were part of the one child policy in China. And we covered that when we covered the fall of the cabal. Anyway, I digress just a little bit, but just to want you to understand all of these people and all of these moving parts right now and how important they are, because this is still going on. And as we're listening to this, guys, I want you to think to the present day and think, do you see any patterns? Does this look familiar? Who was the fall guy? Did that fall guy go to prison? Think of Ray Epps. Did he go to prison? Did he pay for any of his crimes?
Results. The raid at Arezzo produced another devastating result: the loss of power for the Christian Democrats in Italy. Since 1947, the CIA had bolstered the party with over $65 million in cash, making sure it would remain in control of the Italian government. But the names of 3 leading members of the cabinet of Prime Minister Arnaldo Forlani were on the P2 list, along with the heads of Italy's military intelligence, commanders of the Guardia di Finanza, prominent journalists, including the editors and publishers of Corriere della Sera, powerful judicial officials, and leading military figures. The government of Forlani, the geostrategists within the CIA realized, could not weather the crisis and would collapse within the year, and the agency would lose control of the financial police who were in charge of the Ambrosiano investigation. The military intelligence would no longer be able to plant evidence against the Italian communists. Judges would no longer issue the prescribed ruling, and journalists would no longer provide the proper spin to the daily news. The overseers of Gladio, at the bidding of the elite members of the Trilateral Commission, had engineered the Pope's election and catered to his every demand. They had directed covert action against the proponents of liberation theology. They had bolstered the Christian Democratic Party so that it would remain the dominant governing force in Italy. They had engaged in the arrest and execution of troublesome laymen and priests, including Bishop Oscar Romero. And they had shelled out more than $200 million in black funds to Solidarity. Elizabeth Wojciechowski, who ran the Solidarity office in Brussels, expressed wonder at the galactic sums of money flowing through her tiny office every day. John Paul II, in his naivety, simply assumed that such support was his proper due as the Vicar of Christ. Ingratitude, while grating, was permissible, but the Pope's sudden decision to undermine the fundamental objective of Gladio by seeking a rapprochement with the Soviets was intolerable. Secret negotiations. In January 1981, John Paul II met with Walesa and an 8-strong Solidarity delegation, who sought his presence among the union workers to ward off any plans of Leonid Brezhnev for a Soviet invasion of Poland. The Pope said that he could not provide such personal intervention. He could only provide spiritual solace to his fellow Poles during this time of turmoil. Tadeusz Mazowiecki, a member of the delegation, recalled the meeting. The Pope was speaking about Solidarity directly to some of its founding fathers, but I felt he was also speaking beyond us to the wider world. He said, "Solidarity is a movement that is not only fighting against something, but is also fighting for something." He made it clear that he saw Solidarity as a movement for peaceful change. Neither Mazowiecki, nor Walesa, nor any other delegation member realized that John Paul II was engaged in talks with the Kremlin to bring about a political rapprochement between the Soviet leaders and the union organizers. The Pope felt uniquely qualified to forge an accord. As Archbishop of Krakow, he had dealt with communist leaders on a pragmatic basis. He realized that the godless Soviets and devout Catholics could live together under the same roof. The vast majority of Poles espoused Marxist doctrine during the week and trooped off to Mass on Sunday morning. The Pope understood this peculiar brand of Christian humanism. In December 1980, Soviet Central Committee Chairman Vadim Zagladin made the pilgrimage to Vatican City, where he secretly met with the Holy Father to come to an agreement over the labor problems in Poland. But an accord between Solidarity and the Kremlin forged by the Holy See would violate the claims and trust of the Reagan administration, which spoke of the evil empire in order to spend $2.2 trillion on new weapons, including the Star Wars initiative. a fanciful technology supposed to vaporize any Soviet missiles approaching the United States from outer space. What's more, John Paul II's unwanted efforts would undermine the CIA's anticipated victory in the Cold War. The Soviets, after all, had stumbled into their own Vietnam, and the agency was very busy shipping to Afghanistan not only missiles and weapons, but also Tennessee mules, uniquely capable of carrying the munitions to the Mujahideen in the mountains. To make matters worse, the Holy Father was negotiating with the Kremlin about other matters, including an agreement for nuclear disarmament and recognition of the Palestine Liberation Organization. He had entered a political arena where his presence was neither warranted nor welcomed.
Okay, so the Pope is making peace. He's getting to know these people on a personal level because this Pope did not go through regular channels. If I remember correctly from my research, he actually had all of the bugs removed, and he only would meet with certain people, and he was negotiating with other countries and making peace. So at this time, what they're saying is Russia is when they're saying having their style of a Vietnam, they're moving weapons into Afghanistan, and I'm not sure what the sole purpose of that is and what the fight was, because I don't know too much about that war. I will do research on it and understand it more fully. Anyway, I forgot to share this slide with you, and I do want to share it. So, this is, the first little section. So, with Sindona, with Lucia with them finding all okay, let's back up. The confiscated files tied Jelly. So when Sindona was going to prison and they weren't bailing him out, they started looking into Jelly, right? The rest of the government and everyone did not know about El Caso Calvi or Paul Marcinkus, who was at one point assigned to the Pope to be his protector. And he ended up being high up and being the archbishop and was in charge of the finances and the bank and all kinds of things. So he had lots of responsibilities and he could pretty much do anything with the money. So the confiscated files tied Jelly directly to the CIA. It also tied Calvi, Sindona, and Marcinkus to the secret society. It also showed that P2 provided weapons to right-wing regimes and rebel armies. It also implicated the US. If they would have provided help to Sedona, this all would have been prevented. Anyway, I must have missed when they were talking about that for one split second, but I wanted to show that I like to see their people and see what they actually look like. To me, it's quite fascinating. It's crazy, and I've actually looked at more of each of these individuals and where they are and what they well, yeah, The Godfather, you know that they created The Godfather, right? They were part of Paramount Pictures, and they helped create The Godfather, and there's so much about The Godfather that is so real to life in this situation that it's completely insane.
The Solidarity Crisis. On March 28, 1981, Solidarity mounted the largest strike in the history of the Soviet Union in protest of the beating of 4 Polish workers by the Communist Security Service. Between 12 and 14 million Poles took part in the protest. A general strike to shut down all labor and commerce was set for March 30th. The Soviets, in response, planned an invasion. The strikers, however, were not afraid. They believed a report from a French diplomat that the Pope would leave Vatican City to stand with his people against the invaders. At the last moment, Walesa received a letter from John Paul II, who condemned the Union's intransigence and asked for the strikers to return to work. The effects of this communication were immediate. The general strike was called off. Walesa toned down his inflammatory rhetoric, and Solidarity became greatly weakened as a force in Polish affairs. A few days after this decision was made, Walesa told interviewers, The Pope wrote to us and the primate, pleading for reason and reflection. Tomorrow we may achieve more, but we may not go to the brink. At the same time, I know what is good today may turn out tomorrow to be bad. And the historians, when they come to judge, may say, "But he was crazy. The authorities were bluffing. They were weak. Their bark was worse than their bite. It would have been possible, at long last, to put the country straight. They could have won, and they flunked it. They can judge me like that in 10 or 50 years. And we don't yet know if I was right, or those who took the other view. In my opinion, the risk was too great." Bad timing. The Pope's timing could not have been worse for Gladio. In Belgium, plans were being drawn for the Brabant massacre, which would result in the killing of 8 people, including an entire family. The same unit was training for an attack on a police station in the sleepy southern Belgian town of Wielsum, where they would steal weapons in order to plant them among communist agitators. In Spain, the Gladio unit continued to hunt down and assassinate the leading members of the Basque separatist movement. In France, the secret army was preparing to murder Marseille police inspector Jacques Massier and his entire family, since Massier had launched an investigation into drug trafficking and Gladio. In Germany, the Gladio unit under Heinz Lemke had launched a major terror attack in Munich. The weapons used in the attack came from a large arms dump in the Lüneburger Heide district. In Italy, the gladiators had just completed the Bologna bombing. But nowhere was Gladio at a more decisive stage than in Turkey. Terror in Turkey. In 1980, General Kenan Evren.
Hold on, I'm just pulling up a map of Europe real quick, because you know me and my maps. Let's just look at everything real quick. Let's see here. All right, so let's pull this back up real quick. Did I stop sharing completely? Yes, I did. Hold on. Didn't mean to do that. All right, so right here, oh my goodness, that's not what I want to share, you idiots. There we go. This is what I wanted to show you. Okay. Let's scroll down. Okay, there we go. Now it's scrolling. So we have France, we have Belgium right there, and it's just a hop, skip, and away from the United Kingdom, right? So we've got Italy, Germany, Netherlands. Not certain what the role Belgium is going to play and why they want to take over right now, but they do. Oh, hi, LW. Welcome. Welcome. All right. Now I've got to pull up my other screen to share instead. Hold on. I didn't mean to close it. All right, here we go. Finally, we got it. We got it.
The commander of the counter-guerrillas, a Gladio unit, had staged a coup that toppled the government of Bülent Ecevit and the Democratic Left Party. Upon hearing the news, President Jimmy Carter phoned Paul Henze, the CIA station chief in Ankara, and said with great relief, "Your people have made the coup." Penza confirmed with enthusiasm, "Yes, our boys have done it." The takeover did not really come as a surprise to Carter. Before the coup, Zbigniew Brzezinski, his national security advisor, had said, "For Turkey, a military government would be the best solution." Upon assuming power, Evren dissolved Turkey's parliament and suspended legislation governing the civil liberties and human rights of Turkish citizens, stating that such acts were needed to establish political stability. But the violence did not come to an end. It was transferred from the streets to the prisons. Thousands were tortured while incarcerated. Dozens were executed and scores remain missing. The coup was successful due to the intensive training the Gladio units, including the youth division of counter-guerrilla, known as the Grey Wolves, had received in sabotage, bombing, killing, torture, and rigging elections. This training was conducted at paramilitary centers set up by the CIA in Ankara, Bolu, Kayseri, Buka, near Izmir, Kanakkale, and Cyprus. Select officers were sent for advanced training at Fort Benning in Georgia and at the Ensenada Naval Base near the Mexican border. Wolves eat dogs.
Wolves?
Throughout the 1970s, counter-guerrilla and the Grey Wolves were responsible for ongoing terror attacks in Turkey that resulted in the deaths of over 5,000 students, teachers, trade union leaders, booksellers, and politicians. At the time of the coup, there were 1,700 organizations of Grey Wolves throughout Turkey. Total membership reached 200,000 members, and the movement had millions of admirers. Although Evren expressed fear of the wolves, the CIA unleashed them to fight the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party. Formed in 1978, the PKK sought to establish a Marxist-Leninist state in a swath of land encompassing eastern Turkey, northern Iraq, northwestern Iran, and northeastern Syria, which they called Kurdistan, the land of the Kurds. The wolves were also deployed against the Armenian Secret Army for the liberation of Armenia, Asala, a group dedicated to putting an end to NATO imperialism. Trained in the Beirut camps of the Palestine Liberation Organization, the Asala was responsible for the assassination of at least 36 Turkish diplomats. Both groups represented an obstruction to Gladio's creation of a new world order. The key to gaining control of northern Eurasia, according to Brzezinski and other members of the Trilateral Commission, remained Turkey, once the heart of the great Ottoman Empire. The Central Asian republics, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan, all shared a common Turkish heritage and a common Islamic faith. Although they remained part of the Soviet Union, the republics, in the eyes of geostrategists, could easily be united under a pan-Turkish banner. The wolves howl. The pan-Turkish banner was unfurled by the Grey.
Okay, so let's get our little visual here. So right here, dang it, I always forget to remove the banner. Can I have a banner up and read my slides? All right, here we go. All right, so we have the Grey Wolves, which I didn't know that this was their symbol. So anytime you see someone make that hand symbol, whether they know it or not, are standing in solidarity with the Grey Wolves. And then we have their little flag, little emblem right there, which is kind of interesting. If you take note of this little half crescent, you can see, I don't know, does my cursor show up? Oh, my cursor doesn't show up on here. I need to figure out how I can have a cursor. I didn't know that. But anyway, in the center, if you look at the little crescent, if you start looking at the World Economic Forum, you will start to see this crescent slightly in a lot of things. I think Governor DeSantis did a speech, and on the podium, he had this little slight crescent right in front of it. And same with their flag. So Colonel and founder Turks established 100 camps for ideological and paramilitary training in 1968. So this was already being started prior to what they're talking about right now. The Grey Wolves were supplied with weapons by the counter-guerrilla Turkish Gladio and allegedly received guns and explosives from the CIA in the 1970s. The 2008 why did they, I tried to pronounce this word earlier. Let's see if I can do it. Ergenekon trials about the Grey Wolves in the 1990s revealed that the National Intelligence Organization, MIT, armed the Grey Wolves. According to Wikipedia, a news source reported the group was armed with guns, staves, blubs. I don't know what blubs are, stones, and iron bars. I guess I'm going to have to look what blubs were. How did I not recognize that earlier? All right. Does anybody have any questions at this current time? No. Okay, let's continue on. North Carolina State and Texas University fans that use the same sign. I know you'll start to see. Did I not? Is there no sound because I was not talking and you're not watching? All right, everyone else, if you hear sound, please. No, I did not start it yet. I was looking at chat to see if there was any questions or comments at the current time. Yeah, so North Carolina State and Texas University fans use the same exact thing. Yes, and if you start paying attention, guys, so this is all about noticing patterns. Why? Because there's a lot of strange things going on in our world today, and knowing and seeing the patterns is very helpful. I don't know what the solution is. My solution and my role is to try to educate as many people and to prepare my family. All right, continuing on with the book.
Grey Wolves, who published their statements of belief in Bozkurt, their official newsletter. Who are we? We are the Grey Wolves, Bozkurtçu. What is our ideology? The Turkism of the Grey Wolf, Bozkurt. What is the creed of the Bozkurtçu? We believe that the Turkish race and the Turkish nation are superior. What is the source of this superiority? The Turkish blood. Are the Bozkurtçu pan-Turks? Yes. It is the holy aim of the Bozkurt Turks to see that the Turkish nation grows to a nation of 65 million. What justification do you have for this? The Bozkurtçu have long declared their principles on this issue. You do not receive right, you get it yourself. War? Yes, war if necessary. War is a great holy principle of nature. We are the sons of warriors. The Bozkurtçu believe that war, militarism, and heroism should receive the highest esteem and praise. Believing this credo would unite Central Asia, the wolves became the favored lapdogs of the bureaucrats at Langley, and untold billions were spent upon the pack. Although the Turkish people in large numbers esteemed the wolves, they remained blissfully unaware of Gladio, let alone that the right-wing youth group was a stay-behind unit. In 1978, Doyan Oz, a public prosecutor in Ankara, uncovered the existence of such units and issued the following report to President Ecevit. There is such an organization. It includes people from security forces such as the Army and the Secret Service. During the First and Second National Front governments in particular, they largely adopted the state mechanisms to their own purposes. Their ultimate aim is to introduce a fascist system in Turkey with all the associated organs. Within days of issuing this warning, Oz was gunned down and killed in front of his house. There were several witnesses, and Ibrahim Çiftçi, the leader of the Wolves, was arrested and sentenced to death. The military Supreme Court immediately overturned the verdict, and Çiftçi was returned to his lair. A similar scenario took place several years later when Haluk Kirsi, a wolf known as Idi Amin, was arrested for participating in the murder of Oz. He too was tried, convicted, and sentenced to execution 7 times only to be conditionally released from Bursa prison. Reasonable expenses. The CIA's financial support for the Wolves was also necessitated by the need to protect the Balkan route and the flow of heroin into the Anatolian plains from Afghanistan and Iran, said to be worth $3 million an hour. They also safeguarded the smuggling of weapons into the country. The scale of this smuggling may be discerned from the fact that the following illegal arms were confiscated in Turkey between 1980 and 1984. 638,000 revolvers, 4,000 submachine guns, 48,000 rifles, 7,000 machine guns, 26 rocket launchers, and 1 mortar. The Wolves were so integral to the drugs for arms enterprise that it became almost impossible to make a clear-cut distinction between this Gladio unit, the Turkish Mafia, and Turkey's National Intelligence Operation, MIT, a so-called unofficial arm of the CIA. All 3 organizations were interlocked in Ergenekon, a clandestine ultranationalist movement that operated as a shadow state. The Bastard Son.
So right there, the Grey Wolves were, as you can see, was exactly kind of like the CIA, but it was called MIT. And if you think about the location of where Turkey is, it's a great location between Europe and the Middle East. You can see all those. You have Afghanistan, you have Iran, Pakistan, you even have the Syria and Israel and Gaza down to the south of that, down below that. So Turkey has, to current day, has the largest amount of Gladio soldiers. Tongue twister.
Ergenekon was the bastard son of Gladio, the illegitimate offspring of U.S. intelligence and the Babas, that would come to direct many of the critical events in Turkey and Central Asia into the 21st century. In many ways, it represented the culmination of the dreams of Allen Dulles, William Donovan, Paul Hellawell, and James Jesus Angleton. Ergenekon enabled street thugs, assassins, and drug lords to act with impunity. Even if incarcerated, such criminals had little to fear. Ergenekon could arrange their escape. It could create false identities. It could arrange the transfer of large sums of cash. After its formation in 1978, Ergenekon, by controlling the heroin trade from the Golden Triangle, became worth more than 20% of Turkey's earned income. Nurturing cubs.
Ergenekon, I was trying to say it like he said it. Let's go ahead and add this to stage. So we have, that wasn't the one I wanted. And like that again, I leave a banner up. All right, so Ergenekon, I think I could say it now. So the Gladio scandal in Europe and more recently Turkey's Ergenekon trials highlighted the importance of hidden power networks behind the facade of parliamentary democracy. It's all in the name of democracy. We know this. So it was also dubbed as deep state in the Turkish context. The phenomenon suffers from a scarcity of scolarity analysis. This paper demonstrates the lack of academic interest in this complex issue in Europe and Turkey in particular. After reviewing the central currents in the academic literature on the Turkish deep state, it offers an analysis of the oh my gosh, I can't say this word, Ergenekon affair in continuity with Turkey's recent past. So they refer this to as their deep state. Just so think about that as a shadowy government or the international syndicate, which is much simpler to remember for me. And that was coined by Colonel Towner. If you're not following her, guys, you absolutely should. And She's got some really great, amazing information. She's on Twitter, and it's called the Colonel's Corner on Rumble. I do not believe that she streams to YouTube.
Throughout the 1970s, Henry P. Shart, Dwayne Dewey Claridge, and other CIA operatives in Turkey allegedly had nurtured several of Abuzer Oğurlu's wolf cubs, including Abdullah Chatli and Mehmet Ali Auka. Chatli, who became the vice chairman of the Wolves, performed scores of high-profile assassinations, including the murder of 7 left-wing activists in 1978. Working with the agency, he became an agent provocateur in the 1980 coup. Auka began his criminal career as a drug smuggler on the Balkan route. He rose to become one of Oğurlu's trusted couriers, making regular trips to deliver messages and payments to Henri Arsan at Stibam in Milan. Eventually, he became one of the Baba's bodyguards and hitmen, working with Chatli and Oral Çelik. Killing İpekçi. On February 1st, 1979, Auka took part in the murder of Abdi İpekçi.
Let's take a little pause. So remember, guys, this is 78, 79. So in 78 is when the other pope mysteriously died after being in office for 33 days while clutching papers that was going to destroy pretty much all of Operation Gladio. So they said that he died from a heart attack. Most people speculate that it was due to poisoning, the way he died. So remember these time frames. And in 78 and 79, this is when they had the drought in the Golden Triangle. And at this exact same time, they're having the dirty war in South America, Operation Condor, which is Gladio south of the border. So keep that in mind, because I keep going back and forth. I just want to try to keep everything in. So they're in the process of moving their fields to the Golden Crescent, which is Iran, Pakistan, and Afghanistan.
The editor-in-chief of Milliyet, one of Turkey's leading daily newspapers. When taken into custody, Auka quickly confessed, saying, "Yes, I shot and killed İpekçi. I was alone and I fired 4 or 5 times. But there was a problem with his testimony. A total of 13 spent cartridges were found at the scene of the crime." İpekçi was one of Turkey's most distinguished journalists, and his assassination shocked the nation. Auka received a life sentence and was incarcerated in an Istanbul prison. After serving 6 months, he escaped wearing an army uniform. There was, in fact, no flight. He simply strolled from the jail in August 1979 with Abdullah Chatli as his escort. The Babas needed him to get back to work. The ideal candidate. 3 days after his escape, Auka wrote a letter to Milliyet, which made it clear that he was
Okay, let's pull this up real quick at the stage. For some reason, I decided to go out of order on these. There we go. All right, so here we have a picture of Mehmet Ali Aka and Abdi D, whatever his name is. I'm not going to pronounce that. So this was the assassinator, and this was the guy. He was a reporter, and he was figuring everything out and putting all the pieces together. So Mehmet Ali Aka is a Turkish assassin who murdered left-wing journalist Abdi İpekçi on February 1st, 1979. He was said to have escaped after the shooting, while in reality, he simply put on his military garb and walked out of the building. Nothing to see there, right?
was the perfect choice for a hit on the Holy Father. He wrote, Fearing that Turkey is attempting to realize a new political, military, and economic power with its Islamic brother countries in the Middle East during this highly sensitive time, the Western imperialists are sending John Paul, who behind his religious mask is a commander of the cross, with all speed to Turkey. If this senseless and poorly timed visit is not cancelled, then I will not hesitate to shoot the Pope. This is the only reason I escaped from prison. Revenge will be certainly taken for an attack on Mecca by the United States and Israel. Auca was not only an experienced assassin, who already had spewed his hatred of John Paul II, but also a radical Islamist and pan-Turkish visionary, who longed for the return of the Ottoman Empire. Even better, he suffered paranoid delusions, at times professing that he was Jesus Christ.
Oh.
The Gladio Directive.
Sorry, I was saying aw to P digits. Dog. She has a bull mastiff and it's 135. So my Duke, who passed away last summer in July, he looked like a bull mastiff. He was a boxer and he was a lab mix. So I'm just like, oh, I want to go snuggle. Awesome. So there was a little distraction there, guys. Does anybody have questions at this point at all that I can answer? No? We'll continue.
Early in April 1981, Abuzer Uğurlu received word from Gladio: kill the Pope and blame the communists. It was to be the ultimate false flag attack. The message came with a payment of $1.7 million.
Ooh,
the arrangements
lot.
had been made by members of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, P2, and the Safari Club, a covert organization that had been established by Henry Kissinger. The gunmen would be Chatli and Auca.
Auca, that's his name. Auca.
Chapter 16. The shooting.
Okay, this is where I push pause and I ask you guys who are here. The next chapter is also 25 minutes long. It's a shorter chapter. Would anyone like to continue tonight, or do you have other things going on? I will leave it up to you guys. I only have, I think, one slide made for this chapter as this far, but I could, if I need to pull up stuff, I will. So one can keep going or use your words, and there's a delay, so let's just see. You can continue. Well, you can continue, or you want to continue, are totally different stories. March forward. Okay, we're going to march along to our next chapter. So the next chapter, let's see if they will repeat it, because I was not paying attention. So let's go ahead.
Chapter 16. The shooting in St. Peter's Square.
Okay, the shooting in St. Peter's Square. I wonder who got shot in St. Peter's Square. Not quite certain. Sweet.
Needless to say, writing about such matters as the İpekçi murder, the underworld, and the conspiracy to assassinate the Pope has inevitably made me a target for wide-ranging attacks. These serious threats from certain enemies, and even enemies of enemies within the same circles, all in all gave me the impression that at the very least I was getting near the truth. Investigating the assassination conspiracy, I felt obliged to study the İpekçi murder and the relationship between the banker Calvi and the Vatican. This, in turn, led me to the scandal involving the P2 Masons' Lodge and the connection between Calvi and the Italian Mafia. If I hadn't investigated the connection between Auca and the nationalists, the smugglers of the underworld and their international associates, the Vatican and the banker Calvi, Calvi and the P2 Masons' Lodge, and finally the P2 Lodge and the Italian Mafia, I would never have been able to get to the roots of the whole matter. Ur Momku, Papa, Mafia, Agca, 1984. Known as the Blonde Ghost because of his aversion to cameras, Theodore Shackley had been one of the CIA's most infamous agents. He had helped to set up the heroin trade in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War and had overseen Operation Phoenix. which involved the killing of 40,000 non-combatant Vietnamese who were suspected of collaborating with the Viet Cong. The Blonde Ghost also served as a principal figure in Nugan Hand Bank, overseeing the deposit of billions in black funds into the Australian laundry. From Australia, he went to South America, where he took an active part in Operation Condor by organizing death squads. In Chile, he teamed up with Stefano Delle Chiaie for the murder of Salvador Allende. In 1976, Shackley became the CIA's Deputy Director for Operations, a position which placed him in charge of covert operations throughout the world. He used this position to set up corporations and subsidiaries throughout the world to conceal the agency's involvement in the drug trade and its ties to Edwin Wilson and other notorious arms suppliers, who were providing highly sophisticated weaponry to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya and Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Many of these firms were set up in Switzerland and came to include Lake Resources Incorporated, the Stanford Technology Trading Group Incorporated, and Compagnie de Services Fiduciaires. Others, such as CSF Investments Limited and the Udall Research Corporation, were located in Central America.
Is the audio back on or is it still gone? Do I have to reconnect? Did I lose it? Hold on, I think I lost it. I was trying to, for whatever reason, my computer screen shut off, but everything was still running. Hold on. Should it close that? I just rewound. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was still hearing it in my ear, so I thought it was still playing, and I was trying to fix everything because for whatever reason, everything went black. But as soon as I turned it back on, everything was still going. But for whatever reason, it dropped Gladio from my thing. So here we go. I just rewound it by 2 minutes.
A position which placed him in charge of covert operations throughout the world. He used this position to set up corporations and subsidiaries throughout the world to conceal the agency's involvement in the drug trade and its ties to Edwin Wilson and other notorious arms suppliers, who were providing highly sophisticated weaponry to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya and Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Many of these firms were set up in Switzerland and came to include Lake Resources Incorporated, the Stanford Technology Trading Group Incorporated, and Compagnie de Services Fiduciaires. Others, such as CSF Investments Limited and the Udall Research Corporation, were located in Central America. A few were established in the United States, including the Orca Supply Company in Florida and Consultants International in Washington, D.C. All were funded by heroin proceeds, and a few, including the U.S. firms, were interlinked with the Vatican. After leaving the CIA in September 1979, Shackley formed Research Associates International, which specialized in providing intelligence to business. Such intelligence consisted of classified CIA files that the Blonde Ghost had removed from the agency. In 1980, Shackley's talents were sought by the Reagan-Bush Election Committee, and he became a key operative in planning the October surprise. by which the hostages remained in Iran until after the election. The Safari Club. Shackley was also a member of the Safari Club, an intelligence allegiance that was forged by Henry Kissinger on September 1, 1976. Members included the heads of the intelligence agencies of the United States, France, Egypt, Iran, Morocco, and Saudi Arabia, and a host of CIA agents and former agents. The primary function of the club was the orchestration of terrorists and proto-terrorists by proxy groups throughout the world, from Renamo in Mozambique to UNITA in Angola, and from the Contras in Nicaragua to the Mujahideen in Afghanistan and Central Asia. In 1981, Count Alexandre de Mérange, the chief executive of the Service de Documentation Extérieure et de Contre-Espionnage, SDECE, the French Secret Service, served as the leader of Safari. Mérange was also a member of the SMOM, along with CIA Director William Casey, Secretary of State Alexander Haig, Treasury Secretary William Simon, U.S. Ambassador to the Vatican William Wilson, Licio Gelli, Father Felix Morlion, and General Santovito of SISMI. Through the SMOM, Mérange became aware of John Paul II's negotiations with the Kremlin and agreed that the Polish upstart had to be removed from the Holy Office. Shackley and Santovito.
Whoa.
Shackley arrived in Rome.
I accidentally just came across something. Hold on. Let's pull this up rather quickly. Holy cow. Wow. Let's see. Okay. So this is absolutely crazy. So I just found this. It was a Vanity Fair article, and it was the Bohemian Tragedy. So we had members of the ultra-exclusive this says Bohemian Club. 2,500 of American richest, most conservative men, including Henry Kissinger, George II W. Bush, and a passel of Bechtel, Basses, and Rockefellers. Okay, so those are families are known to. Does it say you are known to urinate freely against the ancient redwoods that cover their 2,700-acre property? They have been chopped down. Hold on. Gotta move this to a different page so I can actually read it. Let's see here. Sorry, I gotta make it big. It was not allowing me to read it on the other screen, so I had to move it to a different screen. Okay, this is really weird. So members of the ultra-exclusive Bohemian Club, richest, most conservative men, including Henry Kissinger, George H.W. Bush, not the second because I can't read, and a passel of Bechtels. I don't know who the Bechtels are. That's a new name. Basses and Rockefellers are known to urinate freely against the ancient redwoods that cover their 30 or 2,700 acre property. Have they been chopped down? Have they been chopped down the trees as well? According to our former member turned whistleblower, the San Francisco-based society may have logged some of its old growth forest, drawing on his own Ivy League ties. Alex Shomatoff investigates with a daring sortie into the ceremonial kicked off of the. Sorry, guys, I'm reading retarded because I can't read this very well. Interesting. Okay, I thought they were talking about because I was looking at pictures for the Bohemian I was actually looking up pictures for the not the Bohemian, now I'm lost what my search was. The Safari Club, I was actually pulling up a picture of that, and I ran across that article. So I'm done with that ADD moment. So let me pull up this picture real quick of what the Safari Club looked like in Africa. And we'll move this to another page as well so I can read it. Oh my gosh, go away, ad. For whatever reason, I'm getting ads tonight, and I never get ads. Hold on. Why are you trying to give me an ad? Maybe they don't want us to know what we're talking about here. Okay, let's share this tab instead. This is why I like to do slides and have them all ready for you. Anyway, this is what their safari club looked like in Africa. I bet it looked like Bohemian Grove, but with black people. Oh my gosh. Shamatov, thank you. Alex Shamatov. I don't know those names. Those are all brand new names to me. Holy crap. Anyway, I was just trying to show you what they're talking about. So Kissinger was part of this club. Khashoggi? Ooh, that's the new I hear, Colonel Towner talk about this person a lot. So I've got some fun digging to do, guys. The good thing is that everything that we are covering right now, this is just this is just an introduction. There's so many avenues that we can go down, and I'm actually gonna allow you guys to help me decide what avenue that we are gonna go down next. 'Cause I'm doing this for me, and I'm doing it for you, and I will also, talk with Colonel Towner and see what she feels is the best next step as well as far as progressing our knowledge. 'Cause that's the most Oh, you're leaving, P Digits? Thank you for being here. Hopefully, I didn't see that a second ago. Yeah, the night's going by pretty quick. Oh, yeah, I wanna cover we're gonna do a watch party to Alex Jones' coverage of Bohemian Grill because he has given permission for anyone to use that stuff, and I want to, so we're going to. Um, oh, P Digits, before you leave, tomorrow night hopefully you haven't left yet, gosh dang it. Um, Tomorrow night I actually got permission to live stream the movie Out of the Dark. I was actually in a space with the what is his name? Mike Smith. He is I don't know if he wrote it or if he wrote it and produced it, whatever, but he made the film, and he made it the way he wanted to it. I wanted to say that he wrote it and directed it. But it goes over, like, the Pizzagate stuff. It was 4 years ago. And so we're gonna watch that movie it's probably Friday night. No, sorry, Saturday night. We're gonna watch that Saturday night. I wanna start at 8 p.m. I wanna start that one earlier on Saturday. So we'll live stream it on Rumble and X. So make sure you guys get Rumble signed up. I don't think it will stay up if I stream it to YouTube. But I've heard it's amazing, and I'm excited to do it. And I also have he did a movie called Into the Light that, is the goes after that, and I can rent that or buy it, so I'm gonna buy it, and we'll do that another night, maybe Sunday night no, sorry, maybe Monday night we'll do that, and then tomorrow night, I think I'm going to do a bonus show, would like to start about the same time tomorrow night, but it's going to be, what we're going to do so it's gonna be along Gladio, so we're gonna take a little detour, and we're going to watch, Tucker Carlson did a show with, what is his name? It was his doc he did a show just this week with, the soldier that supposedly killed Che Guevara, and we've covered Guevara on this channel already, so we kind of know, um, his perspective. We know the perspective of a historian in the United States Forgotten History did one, and then we actually listened to someone who was from Ireland, and from their perspective of who Che Guevara is. So now we're gonna listen to Tucker Carlson's interview with this guy, and then we're gonna follow it up, guys, with Colonel Towner has a whole write-up on this guy. We're gonna do Tucker first, and then we're gonna compare notes and see what the differences are. So I'm kind of excited to do that. So hopefully you guys are free tomorrow night because I think that'll be really, really fun. Okay, back to our book. Thank you for being here, P Digits. Have a wonderful night. Sleep well. Have a great day tomorrow. Okay, guys, back to Operation Gladio.
In Rome on February 3, 1981, for a series of meetings with General Santovito. The assassination, in keeping with the strategy of tension, would be blamed on the Soviets. The plan would involve a multitude of CIA associates, including journalist Claire Sterling, Paul Henze, the station chief in Ankara, Michael Ledeen, a consultant to the U.S. National Security Council, Father Felix Morleon of the right-wing Pro-Deo movement, Francesco Pazienza, a CIA informant and SIS-MI official who helped engineer the Bologna bombing, and Frank Terpil, the agent who had been assigned to work with the Grey Wolves. Santovito soon emerged as the lead character in the assassination plot. He would handle all aspects of the investigation. He would provide cover for the co-conspirators. He would grant shelter to the assassins. As the head of military intelligence and the commander of the Italian Gladio units, he was uniquely qualified for the role. By the time of his meeting with Shackley, the general was working closely with Stibam, ensuring safety to the massive arms for drugs operation that had been set up by the Sicilian Mafia, the Turkish Babas, and the CIA. The SIS-MI general was also implementing the strategy of tension by launching terror attacks throughout Italy with P2 puppet master Licio Gelli. He was diverting the financial police from probing too deeply into the transactions of Banco Ambrosiano and the ongoing flow of millions in cash to the Vatican shell companies. He was serving the CIA by commissioning underworld figures to conduct hits on troublesome politicians, magistrates, pentiti, informers, and journalists. Stretched to the limits, Santovito's network of connections extended to Giuseppe Pippo Callo, the Sicilian mob enforcer, Salvatore Toto Riina, the godfather of the Corleonese clan, Giovanni Pandico, the leader of the Camorra, and Franco Giuseppucci, Maurizio Abatino, and Alessandro Dortenzi, the founding fathers of Banda della Magliana. No man knew more about Gladio than Santovito. No official was more valuable to the operation, and no individual was more at risk of exposure. The Bulgarian Thesis. In Rome, Shackley and Santovito worked with Francesco Pazienza, the second in command.
All right, I wanted to pull up like, normally, I would like to have a slide with this, but since we're just continuing on, you will have to bear with me. Okay, so who was Theodore Shackley? He actually was just let me make it bigger. There you go. So Theodore, he went by Ted Shackley Jr., was an American CIA officer involved in many important and controversial CIA operations during the 1960s and 1970s. He is one of the most decorated CIA officers, which says a lot. He is one of the most, well, I already read that, due to his light hair and mysterious ways. Shackley was known to his colleagues as the Blonde Ghost. Interesting. He was born July 16th, 1927, in West Palm Beach, Florida, and he died in 2002, Bethesda, Maryland. Oh, he wrote book The Third Option, American View of Counterinsurgency Operations, and more. Interesting. So let's see if we can blow up one of his pictures. You know, I like the pictures of them back in the day because to me, this is what they look like. Doesn't he look like he has evil eyes already? It's not very good resolution, I apologize for that, but that's what we get. But that is who William Shackley is, and so you kind of know, and I guarantee he's probably served time in office elsewhere. All Gladio it seems like all Gladio soldiers at one time or another serve at some other part of the government, just like everything else. It's a revolving door, right? It's like the FDA and the NIH. They're always shifting around trying to get policies passed. Yeah, he looks nasty. He doesn't look like a very nice person, but I guarantee he's probably very, very, very charming person. All right, let's continue on with our book. Whoa, did I not add this back to the stage? Oh my gosh, I did it again. Dang it, guys, I'm sorry. I'm sitting here like, "Hey, how's this book, guys?" Gosh dang it. I Oh, I apologize. I gotta rewind. Let's see, a minute and a half. Welcome to Spazoid Sally. Let's just call me that, Spazoid Sally.
No official was more valuable to the operation, and no individual was more at risk of exposure.
Apologize,
The
everyone on
Bulgarian
X.
thesis.
We
In
can
Rome, Shackley and Santo Vito worked with Francesco Pazienza, the second in command at SISMI, and Father Felix Morleon, a Dominican friar and former OSS spook, in developing the Bulgarian thesis, a bogus scenario to place the blame of the murder of John Paul II on the Soviets. Morleon had discovered the perfect patsy. Sergei Ivanov Antonov, a Bulgarian communist working in Rome for the Balkan Airlines, lived one floor above Morleon in the same apartment building. Since Antonov constantly traveled back and forth from Bulgaria, he could be presented as an agent for Bulgaria's Committee for State Security, CSS, who had been commissioned by the KGB director Yuri Andropov to kill the Holy Father. The contract, according to the script, would have been necessitated by the Pope's support of solidarity and his capacity to unite the Polish people in opposition to Soviet rule. As soon as the investigation of the holy homicide got underway, a team of CIA spin doctors, including Claire Sterling, Michael Ledeen, and Paul Henze, would circulate the thesis and manufacture connections between Antonov, the CSS, and the Kremlin. To make matters more believable, Antonov, with his sinister Russian-sounding name, could be depicted as an agent who also worked in tandem with East Germany's General Intelligence Administration, Hauptverwaltung Aufklärung. This enhancement could be useful since a certain Antony Ivanov Antonov, a Turkish cog in the drug smuggling ring, was alleged to have served as an East German informant. Henze, who possessed a literary flair, served as the CIA station chief in Ankara. For this reason, he could be counted upon to provide manufactured inside information on Antonov. Ledeen, who acted as the CIA's contact with SISMI, had close ties to NBC and other major American news outlets. Sterling remained the CIA's leading agent of disinformation. In 1981, when the Bulgarian thesis was being developed, Sterling had published The Terror Network. which blamed the source of almost all acts of international terrorism on the Soviet Union. By the end of March 1981, Count Marange passed a warning to the Vatican security services about a planned attack by an unspecified foreign power that was to take place in the immediate future. The Count could not provide details. The warning had come to him from his agents within the Eastern Bloc. The security officials duly noted the warning, unaware that de Marange was merely building a platform that would support the Bulgarian thesis. When the message was conveyed to the Holy Father, he merely dismissed it with the wave of his hand. He knew he had nothing to fear from his new friends in the Kremlin. BND protection. After escaping from prison, Mehmet Ali Aouka made his way to the Hotel Vitosha in Sofia, where he met with Bekir Çelenk and other Babas. He returned to his old job as an enforcer of the Stibam pipeline that led from the Balkans into Western Europe.
I was trying to find a picture of Ladin. So right now, as you guys can see, everything with Operation Gladio, especially when it comes to Italy and that part of the world, everything is kind of falling apart. Like things are kind of not working out too well for them. I just pushed rewind. Good hell.
A Dominican friar and former OSS pro d'Ortenzi, the founding fathers of Banda della Magliana. No man knew more about Gladio than Santo Vito. No official was more valuable to the operation.
I've got to
And
find
no
our spot. Hold
individual
on.
was more at risk of exposure. The Bulgarian thesis. In Rome, Shackley and Santo Vito worked with Francesco Pazienza, the second in command at SISMI, and Father Felix Morleon, a Dominican friar and former OSS spook, in developing the Bulgarian thesis, a bogus scenario to place the blame of the murder of John Paul II on the Soviets. Morleon had discovered the perfect patsy. Sergei Ivanov Antonov, a Bulgarian communist working in Rome for the Balkan Airlines, lived one floor above Morleon in the same apartment building. Since Antonov constantly traveled back and forth from Bulgaria, he could be presented as an agent for Bulgaria's Committee for State Security, CSS, who had been commissioned by the KGB director Yuri Andropov to kill the Holy Father. The contract, according to the script, would have been necessitated by the Pope's support of solidarity and his capacity to unite the Polish people in opposition to Soviet rule. As soon as the investigation of the holy homicide got underway, a team of CIA spin doctors, including Claire Sterling, Michael Ladin, and Paul Henze, would circulate the thesis and manufacture connections between Antonov, the CSS, and the Kremlin. To make matters more believable, Antonov, with his sinister Russian-sounding name, could be depicted as an agent who also worked in tandem with East Germany's General Intelligence Administration, Hauptverwaltung Aufklärung. This enhancement could be useful since a certain Antony Ivanov Antonov, a Turkish cog in the drug smuggling ring, was alleged to have served as an East German informant. Henze, who possessed a literary flair, served as the CIA station chief in Ankara. For this reason, he could be counted upon to provide manufactured inside information on Antonov. Ladin, who acted as the CIA's contact with SISMI, had close ties to NBC and other major American news outlets. Sterling remained the CIA's leading agent of disinformation. In 1981, when the Bulgarian thesis was being developed, Sterling had published The Terror Network, which blamed the source of almost all acts of international terrorism on the Soviet Union. By the end of March 1981, Count Marange passed a warning to the Vatican security services about a planned attack by an unspecified foreign power that was to take place in the immediate future. The Count could not provide details. The warning had come to him from his agents within the Eastern Bloc. The security officials duly noted the warning, unaware that de Marange was merely building a platform that would support the Bulgarian thesis. When the message was conveyed to the Holy Father, he merely dismissed it with the wave of his hand. He knew he had nothing to fear from his new friends in the Kremlin. BND protection. After
Okay, so basically, guys, if you could kind of get what they're saying right now, they're making plans to assassinate Pope John Paul II. They're Gladio style, which means they're going to try to figure out how they're going to be able to blame it on another foreign actor. And at this time, they're going to try to figure out how they're going to blame it on the Russians. So right now, they're setting everything in motion. They're working behind the scenes and they're trying to put people into place. And they even got the newspapers and the newspaper networks involved in it as well. So Operation Mockingbird goes way, way, way back. It's not just a current thing. In order for a lot of these operations to work successfully, they have to make sure that they get the newspapers or the news broadcast systems on board with what they're doing. And LW, if you like spaces, me and Julian are going to start doing more spaces. They're fun. Anyway, I like it because you can just talk, people can conversate, or people can ask questions. Eventually, what I want to do is start this show earlier and then follow it up with a live space follow-up show for those who just want to kind of talk about it, maybe collaborate, or even just talk about nothing, right? And just have a fun time. But that's in the works. And welcome, Waz. Haven't seen you for a minute. So, yeah, they're planning to assassinate the Pope. Gladio style, they're setting everything in motion. They're getting everything in place. And that's what they always do.
escaping from prison, Mehmet Ali Aoka made his way to the Hotel Vitosha in Sofia, where he met with Bekir Çelenk and other Babas. He returned to his old job as an enforcer of the Stibam pipeline that led from the Balkans into Western Europe. During this time, he made several trips to Palermo, where he met with Pippo Calò and Toto Riina. He also traveled to Milan for conferences with Henri Arsan. As he crisscrossed through the Mediterranean region, he constantly changed his passport and assumed new identities. In the months before the scheduled hit, Aoka and Chatli were safe and secure in Munich. It was a perfect place of refuge. In 1981, West Germany was home to 50,000 Grey Wolves, who acted as stormtroopers for the Bundesnachrichtendienst, BND, Germany's Federal Intelligence Service, to address any protest or problem with the 1.5 million Turkish workers. The BND was an outgrowth of Gladio. It had been set up by the CIA under former Nazi General Reinhard Gehlen, who became a member of the sovereign military.
Remember, Reinhard Gehlen was World War II. He was one of the people that they, with the help of the CIA and Gladio troops, that their network that they set up, got him over into the Vatican and was able to get him a new identity.
Order of Malta in 1956. The complicity of the BND in the assassination attempt on John Paul II has been widely ignored by the U.S. press, even though Chatli later testified to a judge in Rome that he had received 3 million marks by the German Secret Service to perform the hit.
Wow, that's a lot. 3 million marks from Germany to perform the hit on the Pope.
Within Munich, Aoka and Chatli were joined by Oral Celik, a fellow Grey Wolf who would take part in the attempted Papacide. Celik had provided back.
Okay, that's a new word. Have you guys heard of Papacide? That's new.
Up to Aoka in the Ipekci killing. Like Aoka, he too served the Babas by providing protection for the TIR trucks along the Balkan route. In the winter of 1981, Celik was the subject of a red bulletin from Turkey's Interpol for a string of murders, including the execution of a teacher in Malatya. Meeting with Morleon. On April 18th, Aoka, Chatli, and Celik traveled to Milan to meet with Bekir Çelenk at Stibam. They stayed at the Hotel Agosta, where Aoka registered under the name Faruk Ozgun. From Milan, the trio made their way to Rome for a visit with Morleon to learn the layout of the priest's apartment. On April 23rd, The day John Paul II was holding a private audience with CIA Director William Casey, the Turks were provided with 9mm Browning high-power semi-automatic pistols with 13-round cartridge clips. They had received training on the use of these weapons by CIA agent Frank Turpil. The semi-automatics had been imported from East Germany by Horst Grillmeyer, an arms dealer and operative of the BND. The place of origin was significant, since the pistols, when found, would support the Bulgarian thesis.
So they're wanting to blame this on Russia, and it looks like they're going to get caught, and they're going to be able to trace the origins all the way back to Bulgaria. Or are they going to blame it on Bulgaria?
The attempted hit. On May 13, 1981, John Paul II appeared in the Papa-mobile, an open-top Jeep, before an adoring crowd of 5,000. As he was being driven around St. Peter's Square, he stood upright to return a young girl he had been holding to her mother.
Aww.
It was 5:19 in the afternoon. A series of shots rang out, with bullets striking the Holy Father and two women from New York. Chaos ensued, and a small explosion went off in the corner of the square. Aoka fled, tossing his pistol under a truck, before he was collared by the Vatican security chief. The Pope was rushed to the Gemelli, the teaching hospital of the Catholic University of the Sacred Heart in Rome. He had been struck by 4 bullets. 2 remained lodged in his lower intestine. The others had hit his left index finger and his right hand. He slipped in and out of consciousness. His blood pressure fell dramatically. His pulse was weak and faltering. By the time he reached the operating room, John Paul II had lost between 5 and 6 pints of blood. A moment or two later, Dr. Francesco Cruciti later recalled, it would have been too late. One of the bullets had passed within a few millimeters of the central aorta.
Oh, wow.
If that had been nicked, death would have been almost instantaneous. On exiting the body, the same bullet came within a centimeter of shattering the Pope's spine. He had survived by a miracle.
Wow, that's crazy. So that was in 1981. So let's go ahead and pull up this person real quick. So it was the same person. I was trying to not do any spoiler alerts earlier. So Mehmet al-Aka is the one that ended up assassinating the Pope. So let's see, was it one slide before? So we have John Paul II was the first non-Italian pope in 45 years. He was put in place after Pope John I, who they assassinated after 33 days of being in office, once again for trying to expose Gladio. He threatened Gladio by, he was wanting to unite Muslims, the Soviet Union, the Jews, and the Poles. He had issued apologies to all these people for any wrongdoings that the Catholic Church has done to them. He traveled abroad extensively in an effort to promote great understanding between countries and religions. He campaigned against political oppression, violence, and materialism. He survived an assassination attempt in 1981 by, what's his name? Mehmet Ali Aka. Crazy. So he was shot 2 times in the stomach at close range. And he was the longest living pope. He lived until, or longest serving pope. He served until 2005, 2002, 2005, I believe until 2005. Which is amazing that he was able to survive. I'm curious how I'm curious to see how Gladio operated during this period, because we're not there yet, so I don't know all of the information, but I'm really, really curious as to how they succeeded.
The crime scene. At the scene of the attempted assassination, a Dutch coach driver said that the Pope had been shot by Aoka and 2 other gunmen. Other onlookers provided the same testimony. Some mentioned a diversionary explosion that had gone off in a corner of the square. The arrest warrant, signed by Achille Gallucci, Rome's prosecutor general, stated that Aoka had acted in collaboration with other individuals whose identity remains unknown. By the end of the day, Luciano Infelizi, the magistrate who had been assigned to the investigation, concluded, "There are documented proofs that Mehmet Ali Aoka did not act alone." The proof, in part, consisted of the variety of casings found in the vicinity. Such evidence did not appear in court, neither did the investigating magistrate. Infelizi, who came to know too much, was quickly removed from the case and assigned other duties. Speedy trial. The trial lasted only 3 days.
So as normal, they are going to they will protect certain Gladio units and members as long as they have a lot of information, and it sounds like he was worth saving. Maybe they learned their lesson from throwing Sindona under the bus, because that's where everything started to unravel. That's when they found Jelly's hidden documents. Some were at his house, and then others were stashed in a suitcase when they found it in a suitcase of his daughter's when she was traveling, which was crazy.
Aoka rejected the jurisdiction of the Italian court, claiming that the incident occurred in Vatican City, a sovereign state. When his demand for a change in venue was rejected, Aoka said, "I shall not answer questions. I do not acknowledge this court. The trial has ended. Thank you." During the trial, Sister Letizia, a Franciscan nun from Genoa, identified Aoka as the would-be killer and stated her belief that he acted alone. But the nun's testimony was undermined by a photograph that had been taken by an American tourist. The photo showed a man running away from the scene with a pistol in his hand. In light of this evidence, the court ruled that there existed no valid elements permitting to confirm or exclude the possibility of other gunmen. Neither the prosecutor nor the defense attorney made note of the sighting of two unlikely figures at the scene of the crime: former CIA agents Theodore Shackley and Tom Clines. The presence of such prominent spooks in St. Peter's Square at that particular time and at that particular hour remains unexplained. In his biography of Shackley, titled Blonde Ghost, noted journalist David Korn does not mention Shackley being at the crime scene, or his clandestine meetings with Count de Maranche and General Santovito. Unexpected visitors. Aoka was sentenced to life in prison with 1 year of solitary confinement.
Oh,
Despite
wow.
this sentence, the prisoner soon received an ongoing stream of surprising visitors, including Francesco Pazienza, General Santovito, Father Morleone, members of the Camorra, including fellow prisoner Raffaello Cutolo, agents from the CIA, and Monsignor Marcello Morgante, who represented Archbishop Marcinkus of the IOR. The visits were choreographed by Pazienza to advance the Bulgarian thesis. During his daily visits, Pazienza, with Cutolo at his side, showed Aoka photographs of Antonov and several Bulgarians they wished to implicate in the assassination attempt. For hours, Aoka pored over the photos, memorizing distinctive characteristics and receiving information about the personal habits and tics of the fall guys. By the fall of 1981, Aoka was singing a new song to Italian prosecutors. He had acted in service to the KGB. The assassination team had included an accountant and a military attaché from the Bulgarian embassy in Rome, and the plans were drafted in the Rome apartment of Sergei Antonov. Antonov was arrested and subjected to daily and nightly interrogations by the Italian police. He proclaimed his innocence and denied any ties to the KGB or the CSS. The grilling continued with injections of psychotropic drugs. Antonov, although disoriented, continued to insist that he played no part in the assassination attempt. He was kept in prison for 3 years. By the time of his release, he was psychologically damaged and physically disabled. For the rest of his life, Antonov was unable to carry on a conversation or to perform a simple task. On August 1st, 2007, he was found dead in a barren apartment in Sofia. The story unravels. At the start of 1982, the disinformation campaign was in full swing.
Okay, so I hadn't gotten, because we decided to listen to another chapter. I had gotten halfway through this chapter, so I didn't realize that they were still trying to pull off blaming it on the Bulgarians. Interesting. I thought for sure that with him being caught, so even though he was jailed life in prison, he had 1 year of solitary confinement. I was actually looking for a picture of him because there's actually a picture of him with the Pope in later years, and the Pope, he actually apologized to the Pope and said, "I wish I had never attempted," he wished he had never attempted to kill him, which I thought was very interesting. And there's pictures of the Pope visiting him several times because they're wearing different clothing in his jail cell. It's really weird how they say Aoka. So it's AGCA. That's a weird spelling. Ali Aoka. I'm just going to go ahead and pull this up onto this other page real quick. I want you to see what he looks like. Let's see. Share this instead. Let's go to full screen here. So let's go look at, so this is him getting shot right here. Oh my gosh. I'll see that up there. It's fine. So that's the Pope getting shot. And this must be when he's getting close to being released. He's got gray hair. This right here. I don't know what that is. So that's him again visiting him in his jail cell. Let's see. Come on, no, I'm not trying to do anything weird. Oh my gosh, what did I do? No, I'm not trying to do that. Let's see, let's go back. Okay, there we go. So currently he is living, I believe he's still alive, or he might have passed recently. He's out of prison now, so he obviously didn't spend life in prison, and he lives taking care of cats. Anyway, just, I like to see pictures. I hope you do too, because I like to see who we're talking about. I think I have a lot of facial recognition. I can place images with people and events according to their faces. I don't know if that's a weird thing or not, but I'm assuming it's weird. Okay, let's continue on with our listening. So this book, guys, what? Your browser has lost connection to your screen share audio. Try sharing your screen again. Well, what the heck, stupid. Stupid app today. Oh my gosh. So as I'm going to reconnect this, guys, literally like 5 minutes before I am getting ready to start tonight, I had zero internet. And we have brand new internet. And I was like, if it goes down, I don't know how to reset everything because I don't. Yeah, I was like terrified. I was like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do this. Let's remove this. Okay, I'm gonna push play, guys, and tell me if you can hear it. No, let's do it the right way. Let's remove it completely. Stop share. Okay, let's do it the right way. Maybe they don't want me to play this book because that's the second time it's happened, guys.
Claire Sterling published articles on the KGB's involvement in the attempt on John Paul II's life, and the articles appeared in Reader's Digest and other national periodicals. Michael Ledeen issued a barrage of insider reports for Il Giornale Nuovo, and Martin Kalb presented special reports on the Soviet connection to the sacrilege. The theory soon became accepted as fact by such influential media outlets as the New York Times. Operation Mockingbird once again was living up to its name. By 1985, Claire Sterling's The Time of the Assassins, Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston, and Paul Hens's The Plot to Kill the Pope, Scribner's, were published to widespread critical praise. Few noted that the basis of these works was a strategic mendacity and that both authors were in the employ of the CIA. But the story was unraveling almost as soon as it was being spun. Aoka had been able to describe every small mole and blemish of the Bulgarians he wished to implicate in the crime, but he remained unable to estimate their height. This proved telling, since two of the alleged co-conspirators who worked at the Bulgarian embassy in Rome resembled Mutt and Jeff from the comic strip. Their disparity in stature was almost comic. Another problem came from Aoka's description of Antonov's apartment. The distinctive features he described, including an ornate room divider between the living and dining areas, were not found in the Bulgarians' living quarters. They were unique to the flat one floor below, which was occupied by Father Morlion. Aoka also mentioned meeting Antonov's wife and children during the planning sessions in April. But the Bulgarians' family was not in Rome at that time. They had returned to Bulgaria. A reporter's discoveries. Despite these
I love it that during this time period that we actually had investigative journalists that were actually doing their work. So you had the ones that worked for the main corporations and they were, paid off. So you have Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC. You have all of these think tanks. You have their newspaper agencies that own them as well that go along with the narrative. And then you have some up and coming reporter who actually wants to do their job and actually goes out and investigates things. Right now, if you think about it, a lot of these plots that have been uncovered have actually come from investigative journalists. Who was it? Tommy, what is Tommy's last name from the UK? But same thing. He was an investigative journalist who uncovered a big story, put it out there, and ever since he has been targeted. They have tried to destroy him. They've put him in jail. What else have they done? I think they finally have dropped the charges against him because they can't make a case because what he did was not illegal. The story wasn't fabricated and it was 100% correct. So the future right now is going to be honest, investigative journalists who actually do their research and actually do their job. Right now, everything that is reported on is either stolen from someone else and is not vetted, or it is fed to them through people and they have to report accordingly. And this is why I say this all the time. This is why I hate following big accounts on Twitter. I like a lot of the big accounts, but I dislike following the big accounts who copy and paste a story that is from mainstream media and they run with it. And then 48 hours is debunked and they've got like 5 million views and they get all this money for stealing a story that was fake to begin with. That drives me more insane. Yes, Tommy Robinson. Thank you, Singla. I knew you would know that. Of course you would. I follow him on Twitter. I like what he's doing. Accordingly, seriously? Okay.
discrepancies, the Bulgarian thesis might have remained credible, save for the work of Uğur Mumcu, one of Turkey's leading journalists. Digging into Aoka's background, he uncovered the fact that the would-be assassin was a lackey for Bekir Çelenk. He discovered that Çelenk was engaged in the smuggling of arms and drugs through his fleet of cargo ships, which sailed under a Panamanian flag. Interviewing workers and crew members of the Vasula, He obtained testimony that the ship had carried 495 rocket launchers and 10,000 missiles from the Bulgarian port of Burgos to Istanbul, where it was received by leading figures from the Turkish underworld, including Abuzer Ağoğlu. Mumcu, working with the Turkish police, established Aoka's ties to the Grey Wolves and right-wing terrorists. He realized that the would-be assassin had performed executions, including the murder of İpekçi with Abdullah Chatli and Oral Çelik. What's more, he was able to identify Çelik as the gunman who was running from St. Peter's Square with pistol in hand. The Turkish journalist made more discoveries, including the ties of Aoka, the Grey Wolves, and the Babas to Stibam International and the CIA. He pinpointed Henri Arsan as a key figure in the massive smuggling operation and the Hotel
Okay.
Vitosha as the center of mob gatherings. He also established that Sergei Ivanov Antonov was neither an agent nor double agent. He was simply a dupe. Who or Mumcu would pay for making these revelations? He was killed when a car bomb exploded outside his home on January 24, 1993. No arrests were made. When Mumcu launched his probe into the attack on John Paul II, Paul Henze tried to convince him that the would-be assassins were agents of the Soviet Union. The reporter refused to follow the information trail provided by the CIA station chief, opting instead to investigate the ties between Aoka and the Babas. Henze advised him to abandon the probe, reportedly saying, "If you do not, you might find a nice surprise in store."
Whoa.
Chapter 7.
Okay, guys, that is the end of that chapter. So we did 2 chapters tonight. So we had the Pope must die. And why? Because he was going against the narrative of what the international syndicate wanted him to do. He actually was being godly. He actually was doing his job. He was trying to unite nations. He was uniting the Poles, trying to understand that everyone had different religious beliefs, yet at the same time was trying to find a way to work together. In order to accomplish this, he had to go through different routes. He didn't go through his normal agents that he had set up through the CIA, through Marcinkus and this type of thing. So he was meeting with the Russians, the Soviet Union. He was meeting with the Polish. He was meeting with the Jewish people from Turkey. He was meeting with Muslims. He was meeting with all these people, trying to find common ground. So what do they have to do in turn is they've got to figure out how to get rid of him. They assassinated the one journalist who was starting to break open a lot of things. As per usual, Ioka, his name's hard for me to say because it's not spelled right. Ioka assassinated this reporter. He goes to jail, and they say that he escaped. In reality, he did not escape. He simply just walked out of the jail. So 2 years later, so that was in 79 when the reporter was killed. In 81, they've had enough of this Pope. And they can't, obviously, Gladio style, the international syndicate they've got to blame another country that they are in war with. So they've got to figure out how to blame the Bulgarians or, okay, guys, you might have to answer this for me. And I should know this answer. Was Bulgaria part of the Soviet Union at this time? I'm trying to think. I should have researched that, but I wasn't prepared for this chapter. This was an impromptu. Let's continue going because we're having fun. Anyway, they're trying to blame it on the Red Brigade, the left wingers of the world, right? So the attempt happens. They have all it planned out. They have the weapons even came from Bulgaria. Aoka intentionally throws the weapon underneath the car. So when they find the weapon, it's going to take them directly back to the people of Bulgaria. He is found guilty, sentenced to life in prison, and even after being so Bulgaria joined the Soviets in 1941. Okay, so it was part of Russia, and that's why I was getting confused. I thought it was, and I don't like to make error. Thank you very much for letting me know. So they've got to blame it on the communists. That's their MO. That's how everything works. They've got the newspapers on board. Everything's writing the same story. They're saying it's these people. Well, coming to find out, Aoka can tell you the moles, they can tell you every marking of these guys. Yet he cannot tell you their height, more descriptions of it. So then the reporter is going to investigate and they're going to find out that it wasn't the people that they thought it was, the Bulgarians. It's going to be other people. And I'm curious to see if the next chapter is going to go into more detail about whether or not it comes to light or if it was a reporter who had all this knowledge and it comes to light in later days. Um, the Pope survived. He was shot twice in the stomach. It missed his aorta by 1 inch and missed his spine slightly. So he was a miracle that he even survived. Remember, this is the same time period that they are having struggles with everything with the Golden Triangle. They're trying to get things set up in the Golden Crescent, which is and Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and I've told you this earlier. That's why I believe that Donald Trump pulling out our soldiers in Afghanistan actually was a way of trying to chop the knees off of this industrial global syndicate. It was one way of cutting off finances. There was a lot of things he defended. No one talks about that because they don't want to admit that these people actually really exist. So anytime someone tells you that Donald Trump was not trying to clean house and get rid of the deep state, he was doing it through ways and means that no one knows about. Because always remember that the CIA, there is a legitimate faction of the CIA. They are legitimate. They do their job. They do hard work. When you talk about the international syndicate, this is the shadow government that was set up in 1947. And to be completely honest and clear, guys, it was already operating long before then. However, they were operating illegally. So what they needed to do is they needed to be under the cover of the United States. So when they formed this little club and this little group, if they say they did a covert operation or they did an assassination or they did a soft coup in another government, if they did not have to get permission from Congress before doing any kind of an action, as long as they said it was in the name of national security. They do not have to have Congress approval, and they do operate on United States soil, and anyone who tells you differently is lying. They have since its inception. They've always done it. They passed an act, was it in the 70s? I should know the name of the act, and I'll look it up for next time, guys. But they passed an act that if the president of the United States asked this group of people where the money was going, what it was doing, then they had to tell the president, only upon being asked. And that's why you'll see a lot of times now when you see a CIA agent or any of these people go before Congress, they are evasive. They don't tell the truth. They don't have to by law, and they don't answer to Congress, from what I understand. If it's in the name of national security, they can do what they want. They do have legal funds. So if they go before Congress and they've got to explain where their legal funds go, they explain that stuff. But they have this little operation of dark money. That's where you have this whole industrial war complex that takes the heroin or the cocaine, morphine from these other countries, right? This is where Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan play a vital role because that's where they start growing the heroin. They bring it, they refine it into, I don't know where they're doing it currently, but it used to be in Sardinia, the island in Italy. And then it was the mob would take it into Cuba and then into the United States, New York, the Bronx. And then with the Operation Condor, what they did is they took the cocaine and heroin and they actually brought it into California. So in the 70s, when you start seeing the hippies start to emerge, and you start having the music industry and you start having the film industry moved into California, that is the CIA, this international syndicate created hippies. They created that genre of music because why you have all these people in bell bottoms, everything down to their clothing they designed. So you got them in California because they needed to have make it easier for them to bring the drugs up through California and get there. And so you have all these hippies living the free life, doing drugs, doing heroin. So that was all planned as well. Everything's been planned through the cartels, everything. So while this stuff is going on in Italy, these guys are getting everything set up in California with cocaine and other drugs as well. They smuggle weapons, they smuggle people. So that is how they get their cash. With that cash, I don't know currently if it's still going through the Vatican, but that's what it was up until 1984. As far as I know, I haven't gotten further into the book, but they played a vital role in all of that. Um, okay, guys, that was a loadful, but that is Operation Gladio going on today, and this is not me talking out of my butt. Everything I've talked about is backed up by either declassified files that are in books, and they are also from people who I know and I trust are doing research, and I'm able to verify and validate it through either Google, Brave, or other internet sources. Um, I try to bring you truth, guys. This is important for us to know and to understand because once you start seeing the pattern of things going on in the world, the soft coups, the things that they've done, you're not gonna be duped. You're not gonna fall for all this stuff and get all up in arms and all panicky. "Oh, the world's coming to an end. We're gonna be invaded by the Chinese and all these immigrants are just gonna open up on us." No, these if anything happens, guys, it's already gonna be Gladio soldiers that are already in place, living their daily lives, that are perfectly trained. There's islands that are bought and purchased that they train specifically on. This group, this international syndicate can do whatever they want. They can buy Jeffrey Epstein islands. They can buy P. Diddy houses in California and in Florida. Think about it. Think about it. Blackmail is a big, huge part of this as well. So drugs, weapons, blackmail, that's how they get people in government and high places to do their bidding and to go along. And the goal at the end of the day is a one world government. That's the goal. And guys, that is all that I do have for today. If you are still here and you're watching, guys, give me a thumbs up on Rumble, give me a heart on YouTube. If you are on X, give me a heart. If you're not in the chat, leave a message and retweet it or quote tweet it or something, guys. Also, if you want to give me feedback, hi Simon Smith, welcome. And guys, I take feedback. So if there's something I'm doing that you would like to have done differently, please let me know. It doesn't have to be positive feedback. I'm willing to change and make things be good because the goal is history can be quite boring. My goal is to take history, try to bring some pictures to it and try to make it fun and always the goal is to bring it back to present day because this is what we need right now. And it's not to be afraid. It's if you know the plan, you're not like, oh, I'm going to die tomorrow because of this. No, you know exactly who the players are and whatnot. So, guys, one thing, okay, we've got three things before I say goodnight officially. So, first of all, we have the Give, Send, Go. Let me paste it one more time in the chat for you guys. Julian was so kind and did it himself so that I didn't have to copy and paste it every time. That would be great. Just kidding, Julian. So we're going to copy this. I'm not going to go ranting and raving about this, guys. This is my friend Julian. I've known him for a year and a half now. I've talked to him on the phone. I know him. He needs a kidney. If you guys can donate, oh, you did get it finally. Why didn't you tell me? Thank you. Make sure you post that in on X and on YouTube as well. If you guys can donate, great. We all are on tough times right now. So if you can't, share it with someone who can, hopefully. Every little bit helps. He works 40 hours a week. He's not trying to scam anybody. It's for legit paying medical bills that come up that are unexpected. For me, guys, if you are on X and you go to my profile page, you have your DM box And then right next to that to the left, you have a little box that has like a weird design on it. That is a link directly to my Give, Send, Go and my Venmo. And both of those have a picture of me. So you'll know it's really me if you want to donate. It's not required. It's not going to change what I do. However, it is much appreciated. And I do spend a lot of time on this stuff. Um, Follow me, guys, on Rumble. Tomorrow night, we're doing a Rumble and X exclusive. I think I already posted my Rumble link, but let's do it one more time. It's Talk with Sally. So I'm Talk with Sally on all platforms, which makes it rather easy. Tomorrow night, we are going to do Tucker Carlson interview with a Gladio operator. And I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Shame on me. I should know that. Um, but we're going to do Rumble and we're going to do X. And then directly afterwards, what I am going to do is we are going to go through Colonel Towner put together a great presentation of who he really is, where he went to school, his connection to Cuba. So the Gladio soldier was involved in all of the Cuba stuff. He went to school in Pennsylvania. As a high school student, he didn't finish high school. Then he goes off and does this Gladio work, which is I think would be awesome with Gladio glasses on to go watch this interview, and then let's go and see what they didn't say or what they didn't see. So, guys, you're amazing. Thanks for being here. You're great. And I will see you guys. Okay, I didn't decide on a time. I want to do it earlier because I want to get through all of it. I think it's going to be a longer show. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna say we're gonna do it at 8 o'clock. I'm gonna gradually try to move it forward and forward for the summer so you guys can get out and do stuff on the weekends. So 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, we are gonna do Tucker Carlson on Rumble and on X. With that said, guys, you are amazing. You're awesome. Have a great day tomorrow. Do something kind for someone as well. And I'm ending this stream in 3, 2